Did you know that the Bible holds a secret to success that most people overlook? It's not about working harder, being smarter, or surrounding yourself with the right people. It's about something much simpler, something that seems almost too easy, yet is incredibly powerful. It's about silence. We live in a world where people share everything. Social media has turned life into a constant broadcast. What we're doing, what we're planning, and what we hope to achieve. It's normal to announce our dreams, to talk about our goals, and to seek validation from others. But the Bible teaches a very different truth. Some things are meant to stay between you and God. Proverbs 13:3 warns, "He who guards his lips guards his life, but he who speaks rashly will come to ruin." That's not just an old proverb. It's a key to success. Speaking too soon, sharing too much, or seeking approval from people before a plan is fully formed can be dangerous. It exposes your vision to criticism, doubt, and unnecessary negativity. The more you talk, the more room you leave for others to influence your path, sometimes in ways that can derail you completely. Think about Jesus himself. He performed incredible miracles, but often told the people he healed not to tell anyone. Why? Wouldn't it have been more powerful if everyone knew? Wouldn't spreading the news help his ministry? Yet Jesus understood something profound. True power does not come from recognition, but from obedience. He knew that his mission wasn't about impressing crowds, but fulfilling his divine purpose. Matthew 6:1 reinforces this idea. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. This isn't just about acts of faith. It's about anything God is calling you to do. When we seek recognition before the work is done, we shift our focus from God's approval to the approval of people. But here's the most important part. When you move in silence, God moves on your behalf. When you trust Him, instead of seeking validation, you allow Him to work behind the scenes, shaping your path, opening doors, and protecting your vision. Not everyone needs to know what God is doing in your life. Some things need to grow in private before they can be revealed. So the next time you feel the urge to announce your plans, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this for encouragement, or am I seeking validation? Am I speaking out of faith, or am I afraid that my vision won't happen unless others believe in it? Your journey is sacred. Your dreams are precious. Guard them wisely. When the time is right, the results will speak for themselves. The Bible speaks clearly about the power of silence and the wisdom of guarding one's words. Proverbs 13:3 says, "He who guards his lips guards his life, but he who speaks rashly will come to ruin." This verse is not just about avoiding gossip or speaking impulsively. It's a deep and strategic principle about how we handle our plans, our goals, and the things God is doing in our lives. When we speak too soon about our plans, we expose them to unnecessary opposition. Words have power, and when we announce something prematurely, we invite opinions, doubts, and even spiritual attacks that could have been avoided. Many people have lost opportunities, faced delays, or been discouraged simply because they spoke too soon and allowed negativity to take root in their hearts. Silence allows a vision to grow without interference. Just like a seed needs to be planted in the soil and protected before it sprouts, our dreams and plans need a time of quiet growth. If a seed is constantly dug up to check its progress, it will never take root. If a farmer announces his harvest before the planting is complete, he risks speaking too soon. There is a season for everything, and some things are meant to be nurtured in private before they can be revealed. Think about how many times in life excitement leads people to share something before it's time. A new opportunity, a business idea, a ministry calling, a major life decision. How often do people rush to tell others, only to be met with skepticism, jealousy, or discouragement? Not everyone will understand the vision God has given you. Not everyone will celebrate your journey. Some people will try to discourage you simply because they do not see what you see. This is why wisdom teaches us to move in silence. There is a difference between seeking wise counsel from trusted mentors and announcing plans to anyone who will listen. The Bible encourages wisdom and discernment. Proverbs 29:11 says, "A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back." Holding back is not weakness, it is wisdom. Silence also keeps us focused. When we talk too much about what we are going to do, it can create the illusion of progress without real action. Many people spend more time talking about their goals than actually working toward them. Speaking about something releases a sense of accomplishment, but real growth happens in the work, not in the words. By keeping plans private and working diligently, we maintain discipline and momentum without distraction. Jesus himself understood the power of silence. Throughout his ministry, he performed miracles, healed the sick, and cast out demons, yet often told those he healed not to tell anyone. This may seem surprising. Why wouldn't he want the world to know about these miracles? But Jesus knew the importance of timing. He was not seeking human approval or validation. His mission was to fulfill the will of the Father, not to gain public recognition before the appointed time. In Mark 1:40-45, Jesus heals a man with leprosy and strictly commands him not to tell anyone, but the man ignores the instruction and spreads the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter towns openly and had to stay in remote places. The disobedience of one man disrupted the flow of Jesus' work, not because the miracle was wrong, but because the timing of its announcement was not right. This shows us that even good things can be hindered when spoken about too soon. Jesus was also careful about who he shared information with. He had 12 disciples, but even among them, there was an inner circle, Peter, James, and John, who witnessed certain miracles and events that others did not. At the Transfiguration in Matthew 17:9, Jesus tells these 3 disciples, "Do not tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." Again, this was about timing. Some revelations are not meant to be shared immediately, because they need to be understood in the right context. The principle of silence is also seen in Matthew 6:1, where Jesus warns, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them." This verse is often applied to prayer and giving, but the principle extends to all areas of life. It teaches that when we do things for human recognition, we lose the reward that comes from God. The same applies to sharing our plans too soon. When we seek validation from people before something is fully developed, we may miss out on the blessing that comes from trusting in God alone. By keeping certain things private, we protect our faith from unnecessary doubt. The moment we share a vision, it becomes vulnerable to the opinions of others. Doubt is contagious. If you share a goal with someone who lacks faith, they may discourage you, not because they want to harm you, but because they cannot see what you see. They may project their own fears, failures, or limitations onto you, causing you to second-guess what God has spoken to you. Silence is also a form of spiritual protection. The Bible speaks of the evil eye, a concept that refers to jealousy, envy, and ill intentions from others. Not everyone who hears about your plans wants to see you succeed. Some people will secretly hope for your failure. Some may even speak against you, whether intentionally or unintentionally. By keeping things private, you reduce the chances of negative energy interfering with what God is doing in your life. This does not mean living in isolation or never seeking guidance. There is wisdom in seeking godly counsel and having trusted mentors. The key is discernment, knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Not every plan needs to be shared before it comes to fruition. Consider the story of Noah. He was given an extraordinary assignment to build an ark in preparation for a flood that no one else believed was coming. He worked in obedience to God, not seeking the approval of people. Had he spent his time trying to convince others of what God told him, he would have been met with mockery and discouragement. Instead, he remained faithful, building in silence until the appointed time came for his work to be revealed. In the same way, we must learn to build in silence. Whether it is a new business, a ministry, a career shift, or a personal goal, not everything needs to be shared before it is ready. There is power in letting action speak louder than words. The Bible teaches that there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Ecclesiastes 3:7. Knowing when to share and when to remain quiet is a mark of spiritual maturity. It is a discipline that strengthens faith, protects vision, and ensures that when the time comes for something to be revealed, it is done in a way that glorifies God and not human ambition. Before sharing a plan, consider the motive. Are you sharing because you need guidance, or because you are seeking validation? Are you speaking from faith, or are you trying to convince yourself and others that something will happen? True confidence does not need constant reassurance from people. It rests in the assurance that God's plans will unfold in His perfect timing. Next time you are tempted to announce your next move, pause. Reflect on the wisdom of silence. Ask yourself if it is the right time to share, or if it is better to continue building in private. Trust that what God has placed in your heart does not need the world's approval. When the time is right, the results will speak for themselves. Until then, guard your vision, walk in faith, and let your actions be the loudest testimony of what God is doing in your life. Not everyone will understand your vision. Some will doubt, some will discourage, and some will even actively work against you. This is one of the greatest reasons why you should guard your plans and keep them between you and God. People see from their own level of understanding and experience, and what seems clear to you may be incomprehensible to them. When Joseph had a dream of greatness, he shared it with his brothers, thinking they would be excited for him. Instead, they became jealous and plotted against him. His vision was real, his calling was certain, but sharing it too soon led to unnecessary hardship. Had he kept it to himself, he may have avoided some of the betrayal that followed. This is not to say that trials and challenges won't come regardless. But speaking too soon exposes your plans to opposition that could have been avoided. There are people who, whether intentionally or unintentionally, will try to talk you out of what God has placed in your heart. Some will do it because they genuinely don't believe it's possible. Others will do it because they can't imagine you succeeding beyond their expectations. The reality is, not everyone wants to see you win. Even those close to you may struggle with envy or disbelief. The best way to protect what God is doing in your life is to keep it hidden until it is strong enough to stand on its own. Noah built the ark in silence. He did not spend his days trying to convince others of the coming flood. He simply obeyed. If he had sought the approval of those around him, he might have been discouraged from continuing. When God gives you an assignment, it is not always meant to be explained to others. Some things are between you and Him alone. Noah's obedience was tested not in public debates, but in the quiet consistency of his work. He built when there was no sign of rain. He labored when others mocked him. And in the end, when the flood came, it was his silence and obedience that saved him and his family. There is a deep wisdom in keeping your plans private. When a vision is young, it is vulnerable. It can be easily discouraged, easily misunderstood, and easily opposed. But when it is protected, nurtured, and strengthened in secret, it becomes unshakable. Jesus often withdrew to solitary places to pray. He did not always reveal his next move. He operated on divine timing, not human expectations. The miracles, the teachings, the great works, they were revealed at the right moment, never prematurely. When you share your plans too soon, you risk shifting your focus from God's validation to people's approval. This is a dangerous trap. It can lead to altering your course based on opinions rather than divine instruction. Galatians 1:10 says, "If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Seeking validation from people can weaken faith. If God has given you a vision, He alone is the one who will bring it to pass. Human approval is not required for divine fulfillment. Social media has made it even easier to fall into this trap. People share every step of their journey, seeking likes, comments, and affirmation. But often, premature exposure leads to unnecessary attacks, doubts, and distractions. Some victories are meant to be personal. Some breakthroughs are meant to be sacred. When you constantly broadcast your progress, you invite opinions that were never meant to shape your path. There is a reason why Jesus taught, "Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Matthew 6:3. The greatest moves of God often happen in the quiet places, unseen by the world. Words have power. When you speak, you give form to what is still being shaped. If you speak too soon, you risk altering what has not yet fully developed. This is why many people start strong but never finish. They become distracted by discussions, by feedback, by opinions that plant seeds of doubt. The moment you announce something, you invite the weight of expectations. This can either propel you forward or burden you with pressure you were never meant to carry. Letting actions speak louder than words is a principle found throughout Scripture. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says, "A time to be silent and a time to speak." Knowing the difference between these seasons is critical. Many people fail not because their dream was wrong, but because they spoke when they should have remained silent. Jesus performed miracles without seeking applause. In Mark 7:36, after healing a deaf and mute man, he instructed those present not to tell anyone. Yet they went out and spread the news. This made his movements more difficult, drawing unwanted attention before the appointed time. Timing is everything. Even the greatest works must be revealed in their proper season. A seed does not announce its growth. It remains underground, hidden, absorbing nutrients, strengthening its roots. If it is exposed too early, it dies. But when the time is right, it breaks through the soil, strong enough to withstand the elements. This is how God works in our lives. What is hidden now is growing. What is unseen is strengthening. Silence is not inactivity. It is preparation. Every major breakthrough begins in the secret place. Prayer, fasting, seeking God's direction. These are done in private long before the results are seen in public. When you are faithful in silence, God rewards you openly. But when you rush to announce something that has not yet matured, you risk losing the very thing you were working toward. The enemy is always looking for opportunities to disrupt what God is building in your life. He uses doubt, discouragement, and distraction to delay or destroy what was meant to flourish. When you move in silence, you minimize these attacks. You give the enemy no room to interfere. Some battles are won simply by not revealing your strategy. Confidence does not need constant validation. Those who are truly confident in what God has spoken over their lives do not feel the need to prove themselves to others. They move with quiet assurance, knowing that their work will speak for itself in due time. This is why the strongest believers are often the most discreet. They understand the weight of what they carry, and they refuse to let careless words weaken their foundation. Silence is also a test of faith. Can you trust that what God has promised will come to pass without seeking confirmation from others? Can you work diligently without needing immediate recognition? Can you remain faithful in the unseen, believing that in the right season, the world will see what God has been doing all along? Jesus taught that the greatest rewards come not from public display, but from private obedience. Matthew 6:6 says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." The principle applies to more than just prayer. It applies to work, to dreams, to plans, to every step of the journey. What is done in secret is what God rewards openly. The next time you are tempted to share your plans, pause. Ask yourself why you feel the need to speak. Is it out of excitement, or is it a need for approval? Is it out of faith, or is it fear that it won't happen unless others affirm it? The greatest victories come when we trust God more than we trust the opinions of people. When the time is right, what you have built in silence will be undeniable. No explanation will be needed. No validation will be required. The results will speak for themselves. Until then, move in wisdom. Guard what is sacred. Trust that the one who began the work in you will bring it to completion at the appointed time. Letting actions speak louder than words is one of the most powerful principles in the Bible. Many people waste time talking about what they are going to do instead of actually doing it. The energy spent seeking approval, explaining a vision, or trying to convince others of a calling could be better spent working in silence. True progress happens when effort is focused on the work itself, not on announcing the work. The Bible teaches that faith without works is dead. It is not enough to dream, to talk, or to desire something. Those who succeed in God's purpose are those who put their hands to the plow and move forward, whether anyone sees them or not. Noah built the ark when no one believed in him. Joseph continued to walk in his calling despite years of setbacks. David trained as a shepherd before ever stepping into battle. None of them needed validation before they took action. They trusted that when the time was right, God would make their work known. There is a danger in seeking recognition too soon. Many people announce their goals, their businesses, their ministries, and their dreams before they are fully prepared. Speaking too soon creates pressure to deliver before a foundation has been established. It can lead to discouragement if progress does not happen as quickly as expected. It can also invite competition, where people who hear your vision may try to take advantage of it before you have fully developed it. Moving in silence protects the process and allows God to bring things to completion in His perfect timing. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." Every great work has a proper season to be revealed. Premature exposure can lead to failure simply because something was revealed before it was ready. A tree does not bear fruit immediately after planting. It goes through a hidden season of growth. If someone were to dig up the roots every few days to check progress, the tree would never mature. In the same way, when people constantly seek approval or validation for their work, they disrupt the process that is meant to take place in private. Silence also allows for a deepened relationship with God. When a person shares every detail of their plans with others, they may unintentionally replace their dependence on God with dependence on human opinions. The more voices that speak into a situation, the harder it becomes to discern God's voice. Sometimes, silence is necessary to hear clearly from God. The quiet moments are where faith is strengthened, where instructions become clear, and where confidence in God's plan is developed. The world rewards those who seek fame and recognition. Social media has created a culture where people feel pressured to share their every move, to prove their worth, and to seek applause for their efforts. But Jesus modeled something different. He often withdrew to lonely places to pray. He healed in secret. He performed miracles and told people not to spread the news. He was not interested in human approval because he was focused on fulfilling God's will. In Matthew 6:1, Jesus warns, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." This applies not only to acts of righteousness, but to any work God has called a person to do. When people seek recognition from others before something is complete, they risk losing the true reward that comes from obedience. A person who trusts God does not need to announce every step they take. They understand that results will speak for themselves in the right time. They know that the greatest movements of God often start in the secret place, away from the spotlight, away from public attention. There is a strength in moving quietly, in letting work be done in the background, in allowing God to be the one who reveals the outcome. One of the greatest challenges in moving in silence is resisting the urge to explain yourself. When people question your journey, when they ask about your progress, when they wonder why you are not making big announcements, it can be tempting to defend yourself. But true confidence is found in knowing that explanations are not necessary. What God is doing in your life will become clear when the time is right. Those who doubted will see. Those who questioned will understand. Until then, trust the process. There is also wisdom in knowing that not everyone needs access to your journey. Some people are only meant to see the finished product, not the process. Jesus chose to reveal certain things to his inner circle while keeping others in the dark. He understood that not everyone could handle the full picture. Some people cannot comprehend what God is doing in your life, not because they are bad, but because they are not called to be part of that journey. Protecting your plans means protecting your peace. When a person moves in silence, they remove unnecessary obstacles. They avoid criticism that could weaken their faith. They eliminate distractions that could slow their progress. They prevent interference from those who might try to hinder their calling. They create space for God to work freely, without the noise of human opinions. When the time comes for the work to be revealed, there will be no need for explanation. The results will speak for themselves. Success does not need to be announced. It will be evident. The same people who may have doubted or discouraged will see the fruit of what was done in the quiet season. Those who move in silence will find that God has already gone before them, preparing the way for their work to flourish. The conclusion to all of this is simple. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the understanding that not everything needs to be shared, that not every plan needs to be announced, that some things are meant to be kept between you and God. The world teaches that success is measured by visibility, but the kingdom of God operates differently. True success is measured by obedience, by faithfulness, by perseverance in the unseen moments. Jesus taught that the greatest rewards come from what is done in secret. Matthew 6:6 says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." The same principle applies to every part of life. What is built in the quiet place? What is nurtured in hiddenness? What is protected from premature exposure? These are the things that God will bless openly. Trusting in silence is trusting in God's timing. It is believing that what He has started in you will be completed in its appointed season. Philippians 1:6 reminds us, "Being confident of this, that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." The work is not yours to force into the spotlight. It is God's to reveal in His perfect timing. When the temptation comes to share before something is ready, pause. Ask yourself if it is the right time. Consider whether speaking will help or hinder your progress. Remember that the greatest achievements often come from the quietest seasons. Hold on to the wisdom of Proverbs 13:3. "He who guards his lips guards his life, but he who speaks rashly will come to ruin." Walk in faith. Trust the process. Let actions speak louder than words. What is done in silence today will be seen in its fullness tomorrow. The world may seek immediate recognition, but those who walk with God understand that true success is revealed in time. Move in wisdom, guard what is sacred, and trust that what God is building in your life will be revealed exactly when it is meant to be. So, drop an amen if you believe in God, and pass this on to someone who needs it. God bless.